Hi everybody, welcome back. This is the beginning of week 9 material. To start, I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping on the end of week 8 where we created our character and then did some minor deformations. Let's actually go ahead and open up our fresh deformation scene to show this off. Essentially, what I wanted to show off real quick here is the fact that if you make some changes, if you decide to go the route of creating a dedicated deformed character like this, and let's say this is the version of the character that I wanted to use. Once you have this stamped out and you decide that this is the deformation that you want, then you will have to delete by type history. We discussed before how this is how using blend shapes is one of the few times you don't want to delete history. That's just for actually deciding on what kind of deformation character you want. Once you have that decided, then you want to delete your history. And if you decided that you wanted to continue deforming after you've already picked a deform, as I did, then we just select all of our variants again, select our main character last, then we go to deform, here it is, blend shape, and we can continue deforming with this slightly tall and skinny variant being our default shape. So we can continue doing stuff like this if we wanted to. But anyway, I'm happy with this variant that I have here, so I'm going to work with this slightly tall and skinny variant here. So I'm going to go ahead and delete these because I don't need these anymore. I'm going to save my scene as UV Unwrap character. I will save as here because I have a version of the scene that has my deformations. And now we can go ahead and get to work. This week we are going to go ahead and UV Unwrap, texture, rig, and pose our character. So the first of those 4 things we're going to do is UV Unwrap. So let's discuss why we have to UV Unwrap, first of all. If we go ahead and just take a look at our UVs for this character and turn on our checkerboards, which is a texture that we can use for free to just double check and see how our UVs are doing, we can see they're not good. We can see that they're kind of overlapping, they're stretching in places. Creating a character in the way that we have involves a lot of component modeling and deformations. And because of that, your UVs are going to stretch and just become unusable as they currently are. So we have to go through the process of actually creating our own UV shells for this character, similar to what we did in week 5 when we worked on our own tool and or utensil. So I'm going to make 2 copies here because I want to show 2 ways of doing this. And this one is the bad one that we didn't do anything with. This one right here, I'm going to go ahead and manually UV unwrap. So let's go ahead and get set up. Turn off my checkerboards for now. And the first thing I want to do is actually go to, let's hide this and this and this. First thing I want to do is actually go to my UV here and change to camera based. This is also found, by the way, in create camera based. It creates a snapshot of your UVs based on the direction that your camera is looking at the UVs from. In my case, I want a nice front orthographic view. So with my front orthographic view, I'm again going to select create and camera based right here for some nice UVs here. They're a little nicer. They're still stretched in some areas, so this is not a be-all end-all replacement for manually UV unwrapping our model, but it is a good start. So yeah, let's go ahead and do this. modify, layout, 4096 is fine. 4096 texture map size is fine. I added some shell padding and some tile padding. You don't have to push the texture map or the packing resolution size to 4K if you don't want to. I'm pushing it that way for a slightly higher quality, but you push it to whatever you want to push it for your machines. The shell padding and the tile padding is something you should probably experiment with yourself. It just lets you know. Let's go ahead and actually lay them out so we can see. It just tells Maya how far away shells should be from each other. It's not going to matter too much anyway, because we're going to go ahead and manually move these shells around ourselves to take advantage of the space, because Maya did not really take full advantage of the space as it laid everything out here. So we need to do that. Open up our UV editor again, the checkerboard. Let's go ahead and see what we have here. Much better compared to the UVs of the one we did nothing with, which are all stretched and bad and basically unusable in some areas. This one is perfectly fine and ready to go. No weird stretching to be seen anywhere. It's exactly what we want. Beautiful. But of course, there is another way to UV unwrap. We did this in week 5 briefly. We used it as one of multiple steps in order to UV unwrap part of a garden fork, but you can simply just automatically UV unwrap a model that you have. So let's go to UV, automatic, or again, it's going to be under create, automatic, and there you go. That automatically unwraps. Obviously, the pros of this, it's automatic and it's faster to do it this way. The cons, we have lots of weird seams here that we can see. And while the UVs will be straightened out, the seams here can cause some issues down the road, depending on the kind of textures you want to apply for your character. So this is a fast solution to UV unwrapping, but it's not a perfect one. So if you have, I would recommend you manually UV unwrap your models, but if you don't want to, if you don't have the time, automatic works as well. Now, I'm not going to keep the automatic one. I'm not going to keep the one that I did nothing with. This one is the one that I did the work on. So this is obviously the one that I'm going to keep. This is going to be my character _ demo. And now it's time to texture. We did step 1, which is UV unwrapping. Now we're going to do step 2, which is texturing. Of course, we have lots of options of doing that. Before anything, though, we're going to go ahead and apply a material to this. I'm going to edit, delete by type history, apply a Lambert, my character, MAT. All right, so you can use the 3D Paint tool, as we did in week 5, and I will be using it later on, but I also want to show off another method of texturing your character now that we've done all this work. 2 methods, actually. One of them is going to be shown in an extra video. It's actually a video that I made for my CMT 232 Game Engines course on how you can take this program, on how you can take an export of this model in FBX into a special program called Adobe Substance Painter and texture through there. But I'm going to show you another way of doing it if you don't have access to Substance Painter. So I'm going to save. Let's go into our UV editor. And we're going to navigate to where it says image. And we're going to see UV snapshot under image. Just going to go ahead. Let's go ahead and turn off our checkerboard. UV snapshot. I'm going to save it 2 times. Once is the JPEG at 4K. And again, as a PNG, let's close. Let's minimize and let's take a look at what we have. So JPEGs or PNGs are fine here. JPEGs, be aware, has the black background, which you may not want. And the PNGs are transparent. So, just be aware of that. Okay, so we have exported our UVs as snapshots, as either a JPEG or a PNG. And at this point, we can put them into other programs, like I'm going to go ahead and open up the open source program GIMP, which is sort of an open source version of Photoshop. And let's go ahead and open as layers. And let's go to desktop. Let's find my characters. I'm going to use the PNG one since I'm more partial to it. And I'm going to add in a layer here so we can properly see it. This layer I'm going to black so we can properly see our UVs, which is similar to what we did with the JPEG automatically does, except that all of that is one layer, which makes it a little bit more destructive to work with. Whereas this, I have this one layer that's just the black color and this other layer that is just the UVs. So less destructive workflow. I'll also make one more new layer, add that on top, and this is going to be the layer that I actively paint in. Again, non-destructive workflow. So I can do this, but I still have my original untouched UVs and the black coloring as their own layers. So you can now take in your UVs into programs like GIMP and actively texture based on where your UV islands are. You can also use other programs like Paint. And for this one, I'll just import the JPEG. And we'll make this smaller so we can properly see the whole thing. And just like with GIMP, you can also use Paint if you wanted to create your own textures in a program outside of Maya. If you were to do that, then once you were done, you would save this as you give it a name and you save it. You open up Maya again. Once you have applied a material to your character, you would navigate over to the attribute editor. You would go to the material attribute settings. You would just go to color, checkerboard, file, find whatever file it is that you have done your texture work on. In this case, I'm just going to use the default UV snapshot here, and then just turn on the textures to see your work. In this case, I haven't done anything, so this is just the bland, basic, actual UVs just being shown here. Those are options for you to texture your models outside of Maya, since the 3D Paint tool, while useful, can be a little bit finicky and a little bit unreliable in some respects. That said, I am going to use the 3D Paint tool now, so let's go ahead and texture our character. All right, before I speed up and go silent, I do just want to point out a few things about using the 3D Paint tool, if in fact you're going to use the 3D Paint tool to texture your character. So first of all, let's make a texture here. I'm going to make it 4K. It's fine. So first of all, under stroke, you have this checkbox for reflection. If you turn it on, you can actually paint symmetrically, which is just something you may find useful as you work on your character. Second of all, you may find if you're coloring your whole character and not flooding the paint, then you will have something strange happen. Now let's go ahead and just start painting with color here. I'm going to make it this darkish blue. There it is. You may notice these seams that are based off the seams of my actual UV shells. This is a result of the fact that I have not flooded the. I haven't used flood paint. I've just been painting just generally with the 3D Paint tool. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure that you first flood with a color. Such as yellow, and you will see that there are no more seams. Yeah, so make sure that before you actually start painting on your model that you flooded with a color first. The last thing I want to show, I showed off the stroke. I showed off the fact that you want to flood first, otherwise you may get some visible seams showing up in your renders and in your model. The last thing I want to show is up here. This, Get Brush. Clicking Get Brush opens up the Paint Effects content browser, the Paint Effects folder from the content browser. We used the content browser previously, and we're going to use it again in a future video. I just want to show off that you can access the content browser and actually select unique colors and effects here for your character if you want to. Like that. You want to make an Aurora Borealis sort of effect go for your character and have them actually be bright and shiny and stuff. Something you can play around with and you can explore with on your own time with the 3D Paintbrush tool. For now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to quickly texture out my character. So here we go. This is another thing to be aware of, by the way. If you're using the reflection tool, it's very possible that the paint is going to slip and get onto other places. So yet another reason the 3D Paint tool is somewhat finicky and not my favorite way of texturing. Continuing on, however. And there we are. Not perfect. Again, the 3D Paint tool is not my favorite tool to use, especially with more complicated models like this, where you can start seeing visible seams. But as long as you use the flood paint feature first, it doesn't completely eliminate that issue, but it does minimize it. It does minimize it quite a bit, and you can make basically whatever you want. Just it's truly not my favorite way of texturing. My favorite way of texturing would probably be to put this into another program, which you will be able to see in another video that is attached in the description, as well as on the Moodle course page. Anyway, in this video, we have gone ahead, we have UV unwrapped, and we have textured our character. Next time, we are going to be able to move in and begin the process of rigging. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. See you all next time. Bye-bye.